Hello everyone, it's another wet day on the holding. It's poured with rain all night long and into the morning. It's about 10 o'clock now. It's not raining at the moment, but everything's absolutely sopping. So I'm going to have a day or a few hours in the new barn. This is why I built my extension on the barn, which is my last video, just to give me more room for wet day projects, things like this. Working in the barn out of cover, it's ideal. So today I'm going to, because as I said before on my first worm and second worm videos, getting a little bit obsessed with worms at the moment. So I'm just going to build another wormery, another type of wormery. I've got the nice sort of looking one that I bought. I've got the recycle bins that I did in my second video. And today I'm going to build what they call a flow through or continuous flow wormery. So what I've got is this big shipping crate that one of my customers had, like a statue or something delivered. I can't remember, it was years ago. I've used it a couple of times as like a small hotbed, filled it with sort of straw and rotting stuff for a bit of heat and put seed trays on top, but I didn't use it this year. I decided to germinate at home. It was just more efficient. So it's just kind of, it was taking up room in the polytunnel and I thought I'd get rid of it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave it, it's lined with plastic. They're thin bits of plastic, so they're overlapping. So there's a bit of sort of air can get in around the side, not too much, but what I'm going to do, obviously it's got a lid, which is this thing here, which is slats, so that those slats will let air in the top. And then I'm going to cut the bottom out. So it's nice and strong. It's good sort of pallet thickness sort of wood, but it's held together with these 3 metal strips, which keep it nice and tight. Reinforced top and bottom, 3 nice sturdy legs and a solid bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave, obviously leave the 2 outer legs. I'm going to leave the inner leg too, because I just think, so with a sort of continuous flow worm where you have a wire bottom, you can use chicken mesh, square, wild mesh, whatever. And the idea is you let the worm build up till it's pretty much at the top. So the bottom should be vermicompost and not really being used by the worms so much, and then you kind of rake the bottom, run a hoe, a flat bladed thing across it, or like a little three-pronged hand tiller. You could scrape at it, or even maybe like a stiff yard broom. You could sort of brush it and the castings will fall out at the bottom and you can collect them, and it just saves having to sort the worms, having to tip them out and sort them, or remove trays and things. You can literally just put your feed in the top, rake your castings out the bottom. So like I say, I'm going to leave this in as an extra support, and I will cut out, I'll probably leave these top plank and bottom plank in and cut out all these central ones. And what I've actually got, something I bought about 2 years ago that I've never used, is these barbecue grills. I was going to make a brick barbecue down here at the farm. Bought these, I saw them in B&Q. I think it was like coming into winter, so sort of end of barbecue season, and they were on offer. I think they were £8 or £10 for this set of 2. So I'm going to cut them apart, cut these bits off, cut these handles off with bolt croppers, and then I'll use these 2 grills because they should be fairly corrosion resistant. I assume they're stainless steel or something. And I will use those. They fit almost perfectly, fit 1 for each side. So I'm going to fit those in, and then I need to fit some sort of legs to lift it off the ground, because what I've also got, I was given this by my dad. He used to use this years ago when they went on holiday. He'd stand pots in it, put a bit of water in it to keep the pots moist while he was away on holiday. He didn't use it anymore, so he'd give it to me, and I've had it sat in the barn, the old field shelter down the bottom there, for years, and it fits almost perfectly. It's a little bit too big. It actually sticks out a couple of inches each side, but that will be perfect to sit underneath it and to catch anything that drops out at the bottom. Obviously certain bits may just fall through anyway, even when you're not whittling it, so I'll just leave this permanently under it to catch anything, including perhaps any worms that fall out. But obviously, because it's slightly wider than the crate, then I need to, I'm going to have a think about it. I'm going to have to make the legs slightly wider. So I've got lots of this well, not lots, I'm running out really. I've had it for years. This is 6x2 that I got off a job years ago. Obviously, like I say, I'm a self-employed gardener. I do not so much now. I'm getting older. I've got a few injuries, but I used to do a lot of heavy work. I used to rip up decks, smash up, you know, old patios, helped a guy doing up some houses and stuff. I used to do all the donkey work. You know, I was a big, strong guy back in the day. Not so much these days, but I'd save everything, every bit of timber I could. So I've even got bits like this, which the middles were rotten. That's why I was removing the deck. The ends were solid, and they've got these really strong right-angled brackets. So, you know, I've got all this stuff knocking about that I can use. So I'm going to have to come up with some idea to have the legs slightly wide, either coming out on an angle, or maybe screw a bit of timber right across and have square legs coming down just slightly wider than the crate, so that I can slide this under for raking the castings out. So I'm going to have a little think about it, and then I'll come back and start building. But yeah, so I'm just kind of doing what I always do and just winging it as I go, making it up as I go along. I've got no design. I'm just going to knock something up. It doesn't have to be pretty, as long as it's practical. So I'll have a little think and we'll come back in a minute. Right, so before I figure out the legs, I'm just going to start by cutting out the planks and getting the grates fitted, and then the box is basically done. I just need to sort out the legs. So it's time to get my my ultra precision saw, because everything has to be millimetre perfect. Not really. Chainsaw will do the job, quick and simple. Job done. I think there must have been some sort of bit of an ant's nest in the bottom there. There's hundreds of ants coming out. But yeah, so that's the basic idea. Cut the plastic out, which is still inside. So that's the plan, is to have these big gaps where obviously I'll sort that out in a minute. Well, obviously these grills will go on the inside because they'll sit across these feet, and they'll be up there ready to rake the castings out. So I'll turn it over and we'll get these fitted inside. So the grates are in, they fit perfectly. They're getting supported on the edge all round, every side. So all I'm going to do is put a little screw just in each corner, just so there's no actual movement of the grates. I keep getting bitten by ants. There's definitely a load of ants was living in the bottom of this. They're all over the place. So just a little screw, not all the way in, just to hold the corners in place. I'll do that on every corner of both grates. It'll just stop them moving. Once it's loaded, they won't move. There'll be a lot of weight on it, and they won't move. But when I'm starting it, when I'm first loading it, it may well move a bit. So this will just help to hold it secure. And what I've done is I've positioned the grates with this central rod on the inside, so that the bottom is just flat bars all going the same way. Because what you don't want to be doing is if you're scraping it with a flat bladed tool, you don't want to be hitting something in the middle constantly. So you want to have all the raised bars on the inside. Obviously it just makes sense to make it as easy as possible when you're coming to rake out the castings. There we go. They're nicely tight now. They're not going to move. So this is what it looks like. I'll just pick the camera up here. So basically the box with the grates. So now obviously the only thing that I'm a little bit worried about is obviously I've got a couple of inches at the side there and there, all round basically, and a little bit in the middle. So as I'm raking it, there may be a build-up of stuff that actually never really comes out, but I'll get the bulk of it out. You know, I'll get the bulk of it out. I couldn't, if I wanted to go right to the edge, I'd have to cut all the legs off and everything. It'd have been much more of a massive job. But this way, I'll get the bulk of it out, and it'll work fine, I'm sure. So I'll just need to think about what to do with the legs now. So for the legs, I'm just going to keep it real simple. I've cut some bits of 6x2 to fit smack along the side here on the ends of these legs. Big screws, big 8-inch screws, straight down into there, into each leg. And then for the feet, so I've had to salvage what I can. I found some old 4-inch square posts, and so I've cut them up. There was quite a bit of rot in some of them, so the longest length I could get was 26 inches. So I've got 26-inch lengths. A couple of them have got the pointy bits on top still, but I'll just leave them on, that's fine. Just cut them with a chainsaw, you know, it's not perfect, but who cares. So I'm literally just going to bung these right on the edge here on the outside. A couple of big coach bolts. I've got some big hex head coach bolts into these. So that's 6 inches. That'll go to the top of there. So I'll put it 20 inches off the ground. And I've just roughly measured. I will actually check before I put them on. But I think this extra 2-inch out each side, it might be a tight fit, but that tray should slide straight underneath then. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. It's going to look a bit like a big spider with the legs slightly wider, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. Like I say, it hasn't got to be perfect down here, so I'll crack on, get these on, and then I'll show you. So it's all finished. I actually used a set square, which I don't use very often, to make sure the legs were square off the 6x2, because the cuts were done with a chainsaw. It wasn't, they're not perfect cuts, so I just made sure it came off square, and the tray slides in and out perfectly right between the legs there, with just a slight bit of extra space each side, so that will catch any droppings that come out of the grills and I'm scraping, or just that fall out naturally. So it's 20 inches off the ground. That gives it plenty of airflow all around the base. And I'll just stick the camera up here. So it came with a lid. The lid again is just sort of like pallet wood. Just sits on like that. There's gaps between all the slats. You know, it's not airtight in any sense of the word, so that's going to let a bit of air in the top. You know, the sides can breathe a bit. There is plastic around the sides, but it's overlapped in a few places. It's a bit wrinkly, so that air can still get through the sides a little bit, but the plastic will just protect the wood from rotting too quickly. But obviously airflow at the bottom, you know, there's always a nice breeze here, so it should be fine. And all I'm going to do is, I've got a bit of black plastic here that I will cut as a top piece to keep all the moisture in, to keep the worms in the dark. And when I set it up, I'll line the bottom over those grills with cardboard or newspaper, a couple of layers thick, just so that when I put the bedding and that in to begin with, when it's not all nice and held together, it will just stop anything falling through too much to begin with, until the worms start to really work it and settle in, and then it should sort of bind together a bit better. And by the time the cardboard or paper has been eaten away or rotted away, because it will get damp straight away, by the time that's gone, it should sort of hold there, ready for scraping. So all the grills are running this way, the holes are like that, the grills run that way. That's just the way the grills were. So I can scrape it one of two ways. I'll just show you quickly. So I've got this flat hoe, so I can literally just put that under onto the bars and just scrape them, give them a bang, see if anything falls out. Or what might actually be easier is just use like a stiff brush. It's high enough that I can get down here with a stiff brush and just scrape at it like that, which might be a bit easier. It might be a bit gentler on the bars as well. But you know, there's enough height here. If it's a bit of a problem, it's a bit sticky, then I'll just get a screwdriver or something and I'll just lean under and just rake between each of the bars. It may take a little bit of time, but it just saves upsetting the worms and getting the worms all out. So I'm quite happy with that. I've actually ordered another batch of worms. I've got my new wormery and I've made 2 of the little recycling bin wormeries from that. I was tempted to just put those 2 little recycling bins into this and just have this down here on the farm, which I may do, but I still want to just mess around and see how the recycling bins work, to show you really at home, if that's something that you've got the room for. Obviously not everyone's going to have room for this, something this size. So I probably will keep them separate actually, but I've ordered some worms from a different company. I just thought I'd try another company called Yorkshire Worms. So I've ordered some tiger worms and some European night crawlers. So they work well together. And the idea with this is I'll put in about 6 or 8 inches of bedding. So I'll line the bottom first. Then I'll put some compost in and some leaf mould, because one thing I've definitely noticed in this last week or so is that the leaf mould and the compost, they love that. The cocoa coir blocks that you get with these worm kits, they don't seem to like it. I know that's what the worm breeders give you, but they just seem to want to be anywhere but in that. I suppose it's because it's sterile. So you put a bit of homemade compost in. You could probably even empty out some old plant pots, things like that have got bacteria and all, you know, bit of garden soil mixed in with it. Since I've done the little recycling bins with my own homemade compost and a good layer of leaf mould on top, I can just see they're so much happier. They've really settled in there. So that's what I'm going to do with this. And then you just top feed. So rather than, there's all different ways of feeding worms. If you do a bit of research online, sort of pocket feeding or one side to the other side. But what I'm going to do is basically I'm just going to chuck the food on top. You know, depending on how much I'm feeding them, I'll feed across and build it up in a level layer, so it doesn't not all over the place. And once it gets up to sort of the bottom of this top support bar, so I'm pretty much right at the top, that's when I'll start scraping the bottom, because in theory the worms will work sort of 15 to 23 or 4 centimeters deep, so they'll probably be working from about here and coming down into the bedding, coming up to feed. So I will then start scraping this bottom sort of 8 to 10 inches, just a bit at a time, and it should sort of fall as I'm doing it. And I can just keep feeding, keep raking, and it's just a continuous system. And the good thing with this is as well, obviously it's too big to take home. The little recycling bins I can take home in the winter to insulate them in the garage. This, I'll either, I'll probably fill the top under the lid with straw and then wrap it in bubble wrap or something. With a tarp over it, you know, just to try and insulate it if we've got any really, really bad weather, because worms apparently won't survive more than a couple of days at sort of freezing point. So I'll try my best to insulate this best I can and see how it gets through the winter. But yeah, I'm really happy with that. It's a nice big wormery. I've got loads of waste here that obviously it all goes in the compost normally, but now I can turn it into a fantastic fertilizer that I can also make liquid fertilizers from. And on this sort of scale, I should get quite a lot, hopefully. So I'll keep you updated how we go. I don't think I'm going to build any more wormers just yet. Like I say, I do tend to get a little bit obsessed with things when I get a new hobby, but I think this will do me for now, for this year anyway. And then I'll be playing around with the compost itself and making liquid feeds, and I'll show you how to do that as well. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and please remember to like and subscribe, and hit that bell so you get notifications when any new videos come out. And we'll see you next time, guys. Take it easy.